Ladies and gentlemen, our program will begin shortly. All attendees will now be muted. As the program begins, we strongly recommend you select speaker view within Zoom for the optimal viewing experience. Please note that today's program is being recorded. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kathy Distelberger, and I am the National Women's Division Chair for Israel Bonds. I am honored to represent women from all over the United States who share my passion and love for Israel. We are proud and happy to create an opportunity to do a double mitzvah to help Israel. It is our great pleasure to be partnering with the Soroka Medical Center, situated in Beersheba, and to hear their story during their time of conflict. So, Soroka's healthcare workers play a critical role in providing care in periods of crisis to all requiring medical assistance, including Palestinians, Bedouins, and refugees. As Women's Division Chair, I proudly introduce our Head of Sales, Stuart Garowitz.
Thank you, Kathy. Hi, everybody. It's great to see so many friends and so many new faces joining us today. We have an incredible program featuring Soroka Medical Center, which we've entitled Israel's Medical Iron Dome, Saving Lives Under Fire. We have 3 of their leading physicians joining us with amazing stories on how they provide care for their patients while under the threat of attack, caring for casualties and trauma, and the psychological effect this has had on young children. I'd like to begin by thanking our lay leaders, Kathy Distelberger, Orly Zoberon, and Sharon Sassoon, and our Israel Bond staff, led by Anna Torres, Vicky and Jasper for marketing, and Usha for business development. We really appreciate all of your support and help. For those not familiar with Israel Bonds, we were founded 70 years ago this year and have raised over $45 billion worldwide for the economic development of the state of Israel, with interest and principal paid back in full and on time. Think about how this $45 billion has helped develop the country we all know and love today. We believe Soroka Medical Center is very special, serving Israel's South, but always in harm's way of missile attacks as they care day in and day out for Israelis and Palestinians alike, which is why we created a program called the Double Mitzvah. This program allows you to invest in Israel bonds and donate it, and in this case, to Soroka Medical Center. This way you can support the state of Israel and help Soroka to thrive. That's why we call it a double mitzvah. You can buy and donate online or call the numbers on your invitation to speak with registered representatives, as well as speaking or calling your local offices. Make an important statement today that I support the state of Israel and I'm helping to save lives under fire. Thank you all very much, and we really appreciate all your help and support. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Orly Zoberon, New York Women's Division Co-Chair. Orly.
Good afternoon. Thank you firstly to Kathy for inviting me to join the National Women's Double Mitzvah Committee. I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and I hope that I do you proud. And thank you to Stu for your support and enthusiasm for this collaboration and partnership with Soroka Medical Center. It came about with my friend Rachel Heisler-Scheinfeld, whom I will shortly introduce, but she and I ran into each other and I said, hey, I'm now involved with the Double Mitzvah Committee, and I think Soroka would be a wonderful partner. So let's see how that works out. And thank you to everybody who made it possible for today's presentation, which is coming up shortly. So to introduce my dear friend Rachel Heisler-Scheinfeld has served as Executive Director of American Friends of Soroka Medical Center since 2011, when she accepted the challenge of building an American Friends organization that would position Soroka Medical Center to gain the recognition and philanthropic support commensurate with its stature in Israel. Under her leadership, American Friends of Soroka has developed into a robust, well-regarded, not-for-profit organization with great impact. I personally have been attending many of the events, and they're always wonderful, as this one will be as well. Prior to joining Soroka, Rachel worked for Citigroup for 16 years and also founded a global nurse recruitment business. She serves as a member of the board of directors of the New York Eye Bank for Sight Restoration, the oldest cornea and tissue bank in New York. Rachel, additionally, is a longstanding active participant in Jewish communal life. She and I also attend the same synagogue, which is where we first met. She integrates her love of Judaic art and history as a decoupage artist, and I'm privileged to own some of those pieces as well. Please welcome my dear friend, Rachel Heisler-Scheinfeld.
Wow, thank you so much, Orly, for the warm introduction. We truly appreciate the creative and impactful opportunity to join together with the Israel Bonds community for the benefit of Soroka Medical Center. Israel Bonds are a core part of the fabric of Jewish communal life in the diaspora. I was raised in a home that regularly purchased Israel Bonds, and I remember the annual bond drives and the special emergency drives along the way, and this memory makes me doubly proud to be here today. Israel Bonds and Soroka Medical Center are both core building blocks of the state of Israel. When David Ben-Gurion famously said, "The desert will bloom," he set in motion plans to establish Soroka Medical Center, for without Soroka, the flourishing Negev would still be but a dream. Soroka Medical Center's doors opened in 1959, and today, the pioneering spirit of our founders is still evidenced in our commitment to medical innovation, helping save more lives in Israel and around the world. The Negev is one of the most strategic development regions for the state of Israel, and the promise of the Negev continues to expand with Ben-Gurion University, the high-tech parks referred to as Silicon Wadi, known as a cybersecurity hub, the huge new IDF bases, and Soroka Medical Center. One of Israel's most important institutions, Soroka is the sole major medical center for the entire south of Israel, and it is responsible for the health of 1.2 million people. Soroka is known for caring for and uplifting the health of the entire population of the Negev with a unique human touch. We, the American Friends of Soroka Medical Center, are committed to supporting this life-saving mission of Soroka. So I'll share a few facts with you today. Soroka is consistently ranked among the best hospital by the Israeli Health Department for Infection Control. We are home to a world-class genetics research center and clinical research center. The Francis and Nathan Kirsch Emergency Department and Trauma Center, which is the busiest in Israel and highly strategic given the newly relocated IDF and close proximity to Gaza, is one of our latest new developments. And the newest comprehensive cancer center in Israel, the Legacy Heritage Oncology Center and Dr. Larry Norton Institute. We also have the first inpatient rehabilitation center for the Negev and one of Israel's busiest labor and delivery centers, where nearly 20,000 babies are born each year at our Saban Birth and Maternity Center. Of those babies, approximately 50% are Arab, representing profoundly the diversity of the Negev region of Israel. We have many actually, exciting new projects on the horizon. This year, we will be installing a novel healing arts project called The History of the Star of David at Soroka. And we are building a new clinical research building in partnership with Ben-Gurion University, including an innovation floor and a unique biobank. Soroka Medical Center is truly a living symbol of peaceful coexistence. We invite you to connect with us and follow the cutting edge developments yet to come. Come visit us in Be'er Sheva on your next trip to Israel. And please visit our website, soroka.org, and follow us on social media at Soroka Friends. We'd love to stay in touch, and we welcome you all as new friends. Now, I'm delighted to introduce you to three of Soroka's superstar physicians, internationally recognized leaders in their professions, These experts will bring you inside Soroka, Israel's medical Iron Dome, and provide a glimpse of our intense preparation for and response to emergencies. Dr. Agneta Golan, Professor Mati Klein, and Dr. Shoshana Arbel. These three distinguished physicians share one very important credential. They were each educated at Ben-Gurion University Medical School. Three of the most interesting human beings that I know, and they are true healthcare heroes. First up will be Dr. Agneta, we call her affectionately Agi Golan, whose name is synonymous with Soroka's neonatal intensive care unit. She has pioneered techniques that help the tiniest, most fragile newborns survive. And she has presided over perhaps the most harrowing operation in the hospital, relocating a NICU ward of 50 babies to an emergency sheltered location while under missile attack. Next up, you will be meeting Dr. Mati Klein. He is the ICU head. He sees it all in the Negev, from harrowing industrial accidents, the busiest ER in history of Israel, and he is also director of medical equipment and technology for Soroka and chief of staff for emergencies and disasters. As part of this emergency prep, he makes sure that we're prepared for incoming wounded during the conflicts, including, God forbid, wounded IDF soldiers. Finally, you will hear from Dr. Shoshana Arbel, chief of pediatric psychiatry, helping a whole generation of children and adolescents survive and thrive and resume their lives following trauma. A lot to absorb and learn from these fascinating speakers. And it is now my honor to introduce you and bring to the stage Dr. Agneta Golan. And she will be following the same format as the other two speakers. They will give an introductory remarks. We'll engage in a little bit of Q&A with them, and the program will progress. So now over to you, Agi. Welcome.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me. And it's a big honor for me to represent Soroka and speak for Soroka. As Rachel introduced me, I am youngly retired neonatologist from the neonatal intensive care unit of Soroka. And I was born 67 years ago in Transylvania and made my aliyah at the age of 16 together with my family, a Holocaust survivor parents, after being actually sent out without citizenship and being charged for betrayal of the communist cause. So I arrived at the age of 16 to rebuild my life and my career together with my whole family. I am the graduate of the medical school of Ben-Gurion, the first class. And as Rachel mentioned, this is a very special school with vision and ideas which were revolutionary at that time, and especially educational methods and also the relationship with the community and the importance for caring for patients, not only in the hospital, but also outside in the community. I spent 40 years of my career in Soroka as a fellow, as a resident, except 2 years that I spent in Toronto as a research fellow. I came back always to Soroka to serve that place which was magneting me in all the challenges that I was about to overcome. So I had many opportunities to leave Soroka, and I never did, not because I was offered a very high salary or so, but because I always had this feeling of a mission that I have to accomplish. So I love my job, and I loved every baby I ever cared for. And please show the first slide. You can imagine a little bit how much work it takes to save one life, which I appreciate so much, how much equipment and how many people have to be totally engaged in that process. And of course, next slide, please, to have the great satisfaction to send them home and hug them before they go home. It's nothing like this. And I was happy to have this career for the whole 40 years I served. Being in the hospital in the periphery is not easy. Beersheba is not Tel Aviv. And we always have to work around filling in the gaps. And this is a challenge which is by itself a very important issue. And if you will see the next slide, you can see that actually what happened from 1956, this is Soroka Medical Center in 1956. a little bit before I arrived there. But it's on the other side, you can see the huge campus today and what it takes to bring nothing from nothing, something from nothing. So you see buildings, you see work, you see enthusiasm, you see green fields as well as yellow areas which need to be developed. This was always a huge opportunity for everybody to make any dream come true. If you see the next two slides, you can see the new neonatal. This is a pediatric department, and every flower that grows there has artificial water. And this is the gap. This is a vision that I enjoy so much in working here in Soroka. Soroka has many other challenges, and we are a single hospital, as Rachel said. It means that we have to be the best at all times and have enough beds for all our patients. Our NICU today has 64 beds, and we need the new building is going to be 88, so we don't have to send small babies for a long hospitalization to Tel Aviv. So they spend their 3-4 months away from the family and away from their work. So the new building will have to supply all these needs. The second issue is the extraordinary wide character of the people, the special populations that we have with different educational background, ethnic background, Russians, Ethiopian, Bedouins, Orthodox, and refugees also from Eritrea, and cultural gaps. Everything is in Soroka, and we need to be always open and be able to function in this situation. The third thing is that we are a hospital under fire, which means that I have to get to work when the fire is on, and I have a blanket in my car. So whenever I have to go to the mission, I have to go to work, arrive there, if needed, lie on the side of the road, and then continue my drive to go and serve these babies who need me there as a super specialist. So in this situation, we have to do the best to take our babies to a missile-proof area. Otherwise, we have only 1.3 minutes to go from an unsafe building to a shelter. And this is something that is unacceptable anymore. We need solutions for families and for our own families. And we have to think, we work on the situation in which we think about our own children, our own parents, how we function without disturbance, and make sure that our babies get everything you need. So we are working under an unbreakable optimism, probably something that I inherited from my Holocaust survivor parents, because we never give up. We always see that it's only a challenge that we have to overcome. And this is what I teach to my staff and to the students that I ever taught. And I hope that my legacy will continue even after I retired. We never forget what we have. Next slide, please. And I work, next slide. And I work in, this is how we evacuate the building when we have to take the babies to a safe place. So make sure that they arrive safely to the new location. The next slide will show you that the equipment also has to be dismounted and put in another place. So this is a huge operation that everybody has to be safe and function. So next slide, please. Here again, a baby evacuated. And here is the thing that I was talking about, that we never forget that we are fortunate that we have what we have. And I worked for many, many years in Africa, in Ghana and in Ethiopia, sharing our knowledge to those who have much less than we have. And this is our unit in Ghana, together with the Ministry of External Affairs. And this is a group from Oxford, Vermont in the United States, which we have a whole group working in Ethiopia. And this is my long-standing 15 years legacy, which I'm going to continue even after my retirement. So back to the focus of our own unit. We are in the process. Next slide, please. We are in the process of building this new building. It's a little maquette still, four-floor building with everything that we need. And the next slide will show you the new single room where the parents have place and the baby have place. And it's, of course, missile-proof and 88 beds, so we don't need to move anymore the babies anywhere. And on the next slide, I just show you again something from nothing. It means that I invite you all to embark on this mission and continue this, develop any mission, any help, any partnership in continuing doing the work in Soroka. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Agi. A few questions have come in for you. Can you give us a little more detail on exactly how you respond, how you prepare, and how you respond when the sirens go on, when they sound?
Well, unfortunately, we have experience. We did that 8 times until now, because from 2008, the first pillar of defense and all the other missions that happened during that period of time. So we have a written plan. I jump into my car. I make sure I have my blanket so I can lie on the way. It's no way to come back. I have to get to the hospital and make sure that I lead the group, and there are people who respond only for the clinical care of the sick babies, and then I take everybody else from the professional. We have nobody else. It's only us who can move those babies. But I take my own daughter, so she comes with me to push to help in the pushing the incubators, and we have everything very clearly planned ahead of time, so we know where to go, what to do, and minimize the danger every time for the babies.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's a very focus.
Yeah. What would you say is your proudest accomplishment?
Well, my proudest accomplishment that I think that today I am in this month of looking back to all my career is the fact that I was part of building a unit which today function on a very high professional level in all fields, and that I can stay or step away, and the unit with the department will be keeping to be the best neonatal department in Israel. And this is no doubt, it's a statistical issue. We have the best results in all fields, and it is besides that we have a very difficult, challenging condition to work in. But that's my best thing, I think, but I have many others.
Beautiful, beautiful. So congratulations that you have just retired. What would be your message for the next generation of NICU leaders? And speaking to your leaders at Soroka, but also throughout Israel and throughout the world, what is your message?
Well, I think love your job. If you don't love, leave it, because it's no way you can work in such a place where you don't love every moment. You have to be of a professionally a highest level and allow new development to happen. It's a very high technology development, and you have to be very flexible. The second thing is to love everybody around you. Love your patient, love your staff, love your team. You have to do everything all the time and be very minding the small things. Never give up even the small things that it's important. So worry for the details. And I think this is the 3 points that I was talking about even in my retirement speech. So I think that if you love the people that you work with and you care about every detail and you keep professional, this is my message.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was really so moving. Now I would like to call to the stage Dr. Mati Klein. We're ready for Mati.
Hello, good afternoon.
Shalom.
Shalom. So I am Moti Klein, and I have been the leader of the general ICU for the last 15 years at Soroka Medical Center. I also studied at Ben-Gurion University, and I specialized in internal medicine, Soroka, and later in intensive care unit at Soroka and in St. Mike Hospital in Toronto, Canada. In addition to my role as a unit director, I am also responsible for equipping the hospital with medical technologies, and in emergencies, I serve as the chief of staff of the hospital. My unit has 16 beds and it's operated by multidisciplinary professional staff. The unit serves Soroka Hospital in providing intensive care to hospital patients, as well as patients from all other hospitals in southern Israel and sometimes from Gaza Strip. Our mix of patients consists of trauma victims, severe infections, complications of major surgeries, burns, and other life-threatening conditions. We treat about 1,200 patients in a year. Beyond the routine cases that characterize all the activities of normal intensive care unit, life in the south of Israel has created difficult challenges for the ability for us to continue providing life-saving treatment to civilians and soldiers. Let's remember some of those challenges, events. Operation Cast Lead, 2008, Operation Pillar of Defense, 2012, Operation Protective Edge, 2014, and Operation Guardians of the Walls, just finished a few weeks ago. Most hospitals in the world are not set to serve wars. They can be close to the borders, they are not protected, the staff are not recruited to the army, they do not have to worry about their family life, and they have no limitation regarding their ability to get to work and return home safely. Soroka Hospital was also not established to meet war needs, but the hospital is close only 40 kilometers from the front line in Gaza, and it is largely unprotected. During wartime, some vital services are stopped so as not to endanger staff and patients. Activity can only be carried out in protected areas. Some of the hospital staff are not present in the wartime due to the military needs. The home front, which includes families, members, and hospital arrivals, is threatened with missile fires. The hospital is supposed to respond to the wounded IDF soldiers from the front, the wounded from the home front, and the wounded in case of injury to the hospital itself. Of course, it's also supposed to be giving all the urgent medical services unrelated to the war, like heart attack, pneumonias, and so on. Soroka Medical Center was prepared for any scenario when the fighting broke out in the last round. The hospital had just begun closing coronavirus wards, learned lessons from the coronavirus struggle, and found itself again in a new challenge. What distinguished the current round from the past was the atmosphere in Israel, struggles between Jews and Arabs while trying to keep it out for the pure world of medicine in the hospital. Road traffic was more complicated by those struggles and feeling insecure. It was unclear how many staff members would be able to get to work. The missile fire on Beersheba was more intensive, and the missiles carried a greater weight of explosive. The speed of reporting on social media about missile falls in Beersheba was also faster. Try to imagine intensive care nurse receiving a message to her mobile phone that there is a rocket fall in Beersheba. And she has 2 kids. She left with her nanny at home in order just to go to work. Or imagine myself getting a phone call in 2 a.m., siren outside. I'm running with my car. Suddenly I have to stop everything, to lie down on the floor, continue to go to Soroka Medical Center, talking to terrified staff, and that was the atmosphere in the last round. Another difference has to do with the fact that the whole country, the whole Israel, was threatened. It was not possible to rely on referral to casualties to other hospitals in the center of the country. We were also supposed to manage difficult cases of many casualties on our own. Fortunately, the horror scenarios remain scenario and didn't come true. The hospital treated only hundreds of casualties, most of them post-traumatic stress disorders or minor injuries resulting from running to the shelter. A small number of seriously injured patients were treated in the intensive care unit, and their condition improved rapidly. We just finished a few days ago to learn lessons. There is no doubt that the hospital's accumulated experience in both routine and emergencies make the hospital a strategic tool of the state of Israel in general and the South in particular. Just like the Iron Dome, we began to work hard to fill the gaps that we have: equipment, infrastructure, protection, manpower, and everything in order to reduce the luck factor as a major factor in success to save lives. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Moti. That was fascinating. So we just lately on everyone's mind was we survived Corona, the most recent escalation, but I understand that you and your responsibility for overall disaster preparation for the hospital must anticipate other mass casualties and plan and have infrastructure. Can you give us some insight into some other eventualities that you're prepared for?
Yeah, a great question. Actually, the preparation is starting usually before the silence, of course, years before. We are having drills that are based usually on the conclusions and the challenges from the previous escalation. Where to run, how to protect our patient, what kind of manpower do we need, and so on. What kind of ethical issues could arise from the threat? For example, if I operated on a patient in an unprotected area and there is a siren, should I continue? Should I leave the patient and run? So, we are touching all those issues, hopefully for the next round, which most probably will come. We don't know if it's going to act according to us imaginary scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Kind of related to that, in terms of complex issues that you're facing, have you ever had situations where you've simultaneously had to treat on both sides of the conflict?
Of course, in the last conflict, you mean Arab and Jews, for example, or Arabs from Gaza? Yes, most of the time. We are not asking questions where the patient coming from, where the wounded is coming from. We are just looking on the medical status of the patients and treat the patient. I mean, this is our routine in routine time and in escalation as well. I mean, if the army will let patients from Gaza Strip during escalation to come to Soroka Medical Center, they will get the best treatment in the world, not just in Gaza or not just in Israel. This is our mission, and this is the way that we are living. We put aside all the other political question and making sure that the hospital will remain sterile and will deal only with pure medicine.
Gotcha. That's an inspiration. We have time for one more question for you. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you face in your job?
To continue, not give up. There is so many reasons to give up, and I'm not feeling secure, I'm not protected, my family is making me terrible times, and not for me, for my staff. And the big challenge is to create a team which will act the same if you are there as the unit leader, or if you are not there because you are unavailable, because you are now chief of staff for the hospital, and you must rely on your team that they will continue your vision, your inspiration, and all the protocols that you taught them for the last years. This is the biggest mission.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Latif. We really appreciate your being with us today. And now I have the honor to call to the stage our third special guest, Dr. Shoshana Arbel. Welcome to you, Shosh.
Hi, and good day for all of us. I'm Shosh Arbel, and I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, chief of the Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Unit at the Soroka University Medical Center since 1995. I was born in Hungary, the youngest of two daughters to a young Zionist couple. My parents lived through the worst times in Europe as Jews during the Shoah and later as Zionists during the communist regime in Hungary. Because of their determination to come to make Aliyah, they were put in prison in Hungary for 3 years. My parents took advantage of the chaos during the 1957 revolution against the communist regime in Hungary and illegally, by foot, crossed the border to Austria and from there to Israel. Their lives taught me an important lesson that paved my path in life. Never give up. Follow your principles, even if it's sometimes inconvenient. After serving 2 years in the army, I entered medical school at the Ben-Gurion University in Beersheba, where I met my husband, Jonathan. We have 3 sons and 5 grandkids and 2 on the way. As my dear belated parents used to say, this is the answer for those who wanted to destroy us. Since 1995, we live and practice medicine in Beersheba. The Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Unit currently includes a liaison service, an ambulatory clinic, the Milstein Trauma Recovery Unit, and a comprehensive center for the treatment of eating disorder, the only center caring for adolescents with eating disorders in the Negev. The Trauma Recovery Center provides help for children and their families presenting with various types of psychological trauma, including that of missile attacks during combat in the area, road accidents, physical and mental abuse, medical traumas, and more. Our center provides outpatient and inpatient services in a multidisciplinary approach. The team includes psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and unit coordinator. Unfortunately, we at Soroka are well experienced and well trained in coping with various types of trauma, including mass casualty incidents. Our mission is to respond immediately at the emergency room when needed, and at the same time, to continue the usual care treatment at the outpatient clinic. Let me tell you about Mazal. She's 17 years old. She lives in Beersheba. She was 10 when protective edge operations started. She was referred to our clinic with severe post-traumatic symptoms after a missile exploded near her home. She couldn't sleep, was afraid to leave home, refused to eat, and was very nervous. After a whole year of intensive therapy, she improved, though never returned to be the same as before. On the first day of Protective of the Walls operation, her mother called me reporting that Mazal is crying all the time, refuses to leave shelter, refuses to eat. The past and current trauma mixes together. The additive effect of the trauma is strong, and unfortunately, the therapy in many cases is less effective. This last missile attack was different in some ways. We were just starting to recover from the trauma and the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, which was very traumatic for the children and their families, especially for those with special needs. The threat from the illness, the stress of being in a lockdown for a long period of time, the parental stress, the lack of daily routine, all contributed to a severe trauma. On top of this fragile emotional state and the difficulty of returning to regular life, just as we were beginning the recovery process, we had to face a new and very different trauma, a very violent, acute, and life-threatening external threat. Children of all ages conceive the world around them to be unsafe and unpredictable. Once again, we found ourselves in a lockdown, this time due to the physical threat of missiles while being outside. The emotional and behavioral responses were prominent. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our unit had developed new techniques of virtual therapeutic interventions through Zoom, telephone, and other remote ways. During Guardian of Walls operation, we were confronted with a situation in which many people who needed our help were too afraid to leave home to seek care at the clinic. The techniques we acquired during the COVID-19 pandemic became very useful much sooner than expected. In addition to providing care for patients during the past military crisis, an additional important role we had to play as helping the helpers. We provided care and support for the medical personnel at the hospital who themselves live in an area that were under fire and who left their families each day, literally risking their lives, to drive on the road and come to the hospital to provide care for others. In doing so, we are contributing to the creation of a strong and resilient community of caregivers at Soroka, and hoping to serve as the psychological Iron Dome to our area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shush. So you mentioned that you have patients that come from many different backgrounds, and I'm sure that comes with many unique challenges from the diversity. And I'm wondering, how do you deal with, how do you harness it for the good of the patient and society?
Dealing with such a diversity is really difficult, but once you put aside the diversity and you try to think what fits the patients that is currently in front of you, I think that's what makes the difference. And if I'm talking about having to run to the shelter with a patient during a missile attack, it makes no difference who is the patient that you're dealing with. That's one side. The other side is that the mode of interaction is different. If you're talking with Orthodox Jews that, for example, in this time, they don't have phone, they don't have media that you can connect to. So you have to find the ways, either by phone, by all kinds of very simple modes, but to be in touch. And that's the main thing that we are trying to do and fit ourselves to the different cultures.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the resources that you've developed over the years that help you with your work and help the patients?
We are trying to be very creative with very small and simple modes of help, like when we go to the emergency room. Maybe you can show this slide of the emergency kit, that we take with us to emergency room. You can see bubbles that we blow, and that makes the kids have to take a deep breath in order to be able to blow the balloons, so that calms them down, to draw pictures, to help them We even have, if you can see, we have straws. Usually we give, in the emergency room, we give water bottles to the patients who come in, but kids cannot drink from the bottle. So we have straws to help them drink, and all kinds of small things that makes the communication and make them feel that we are on their level and we are there to help them with all needed during the medical and psychological intervention. And we do give them the brochures. If you can show the slide of the brochures, each one for the parents, one for the adolescents, explaining what are the symptoms of trauma and acute stress reaction, and what to do, how to do, who to refer to. And so these are the things that we are trying to work with during the times of emergency.
Thank you. And one final question is, what would you say you're the most proud of in your career and your job and your experience?
Wow, it's a big question. I think I'm most proud of really building the unit. I came back from Los Angeles after 3 years fellowship at UCLA. We came back to Beersheba, though I studied in Beersheba, but we came back, and I was the only psychiatrist in Soroka at that time. And now there is a unit of 10 psychiatrists, child and adolescent psychiatrists, and a team of 40 psychologists, social workers, and a whole service. So looking back, and the verge of retiring also, and I'm just looking back, proud of what I've done and what we accomplished. And there are many, many, many small accomplishments along the way that it's great. It's that's my biggest and most. I'm very proud of that.
Wow. Well, we're proud of you too. I'm so proud of all of you, Agi, Mati, and Shush. You represented your colleagues at Soroka Medical Center so well, and I just want to thank you for making us so proud. And now I understand that we're going to go back to Orly, and she has some additional questions that have come in for you. So.
Hi, thank you again, Rachel. I look forward to all the fun work that we're going to do together in this partnership. And thank you so much to Drs. Golan, Klein, and Arbel. Honestly, toda rabah, everything. It's emotional, it's amazing, the innovation and your creativity in dealing with these amazing challenges. I'm sorry, I'm still shocked by the words missile-proof for a neonatal unit. But in any case, thank you again. And now we're going to open it up to some Q&A. Our first question comes from Helene Herbsman. So if you could please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. Dr. Arbel, first of all, thank you for all the work you are doing. You seem so compassionate, so loving. I think you're the perfect person for what you've taken on in your lifetime. So thank you. My question is, do you find that there is adequate resources allocated for PTSD and for those who were inflicted with other serious injuries?
Unfortunately, I don't think that we have enough resources to deal with so many kinds of trauma. We are at a huge hospital, 1,200 beds at this time. We are providing the psychiatric consultation to the hospital after all kinds of medical traumas, as well as all the other traumas that I mentioned. We are lacking a huge number of personnel, and that will be able to give the help that we think is needed. Though I must say that with what we have, we are doing our best, and I think we are doing if I might say so, a great job with providing help, immediate help and long-term help. I wish we had much bigger personnel and much bigger equipment that we can host all those with traumatic responses. Yeah, we are lacking. We are lacking, unfortunately, in the Negev area, especially more than in the center of the country. In Tel Aviv, they don't have enough, but they have much more than we do in the Negev. I don't think we are giving worse service than they do, but I wish we had more.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Dr. Lauren Lesser. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Toda Rabah to all of the physicians for taking time to educate us today. I wish my Hebrew was better. I would apply for a position with you in the psychiatry department. Dr. Arbel, knowing PTSD is an issue, does Soroka work with the community, facilitating teachers and other school personnel with training regarding identification of PTSD and stopgap assistance measures?
Thank you for the question. I think it's very important to broaden the cycles of those who can give help, not only for those who need the immediate hospital care, but those in the community as well. So yes, we do educate the teachers, the school personnel, the welfare services, and we do work together and practice together, giving help in the community for those who are exposed to trauma and do not need to come to the hospital, or their trauma is not as severe as needed to go to the hospital. But yes, we do, and they do a great job at schools and the welfare systems as well in Beersheba.
Thank you again. And our last two questions come from Chuck Burke. Chuck, please unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Okay, thank you. You know, as the as Israel Bonds National Campaign Chairman, I would notice in your website now, and this is for all of the people at the Soroka Medical Center. I just want to thank you, because I noticed that on your website you have a ways to give page, and one of the areas that's listed on there is a ways to give is the double mitzvah program that Stu Garowitz talked about earlier, in which somebody can buy an Israel bond and make the Soroka Medical Center the beneficiary. So I appreciate the fact that you've got it on there, and hopefully all the people on the call are aware of that also. I also noticed that you've included in your newsletter that you sent out, because I looked at the April newsletter, and the April newsletter also features the double mitzvah program. So that's terrific, and I hope it pays dividends for you. Dr. Klein, I also noticed on the website that the donations that come from this program, the double mitzvah program, is supposed to be directed to the emergency ICU, intensive care, and trauma areas. And I was going to ask you about, you know, how much you were affected by the recent war. You talked a little bit about that, but you also said it was a little different this time because it was all over the country. You couldn't send people up to Tel Aviv. So are there some things that this money that hopefully will get coming into this double mitzvah program, are there some additional things that you're thinking of that can be done if you had the resources? And the only other thing I was thinking about is, you people are so brave for you not only do your normal physician's work, but you're putting yourself in harm's way. Do you have a hard time attracting good physicians to come and work there because of the danger that they put themselves in?
Yes, so, you know, across all disciplines, we treated hundreds and thousands of patients related to the escalation. Now, you know, usually we don't have escalation. There are people living there and they are suffering from just normal gaps. They are not getting the whole treatment that we could give them, because we have excellent manpower, but we don't have enough manpower. So the real question, and of course I can assure you all that all the donations went to the appropriate goals. We use the money in intensive care units, in the trauma center of Soroka, and all other facilities that saved life. But the real question is, what are we going to do in order to save the next life? How the future is going to look like? We don't know. We can only imagine, and we can do everything that we can in order to prepare ourselves. So in order to that, we need more manpower. We need more structures, protected structures, to minimize at least the ethical dilemma that I just spoke about, what to do if there is sirens and there is nothing that nowhere that you can hide or continue the treatment of your patients. So those are the real gaps that takes every night that I'm falling asleep at least 2 hours of my normal sleep time, because I'm worried about the future. All the drills are based on the past. What happened then? We don't know how the future is going to look, so we can only prepare ourselves. Lucky that we had most of the critical equipment, medical equipment, because of the coronaviruses, because of the many donations went from coronavirus to equip our wards. But all other gaps are still there, and we are doing everything that we can do in order to create a better plans and a better atmosphere for good physicians to come and to work with us for the future.
Very good, thank you. And Dr. Golan, you had talked about how you prepare the natal unit for and how you have to move them all into a shelter. How long does it take to actually move them in there? But you also said we need to have better solutions. And I'm not sure if you have some thoughts on what those better solutions might be going forward, because it's a critical area.
And thank you for the question. I mean, as I am the world expert in evacuating NICU, that's another title that I added to my CV. I did evacuate the NICU for maybe 8 or 9 times. I think I lost the numbers. At the first time, it took us 12 hours. Each baby needed 12 people to move it, from keeping the ventilators on and the medication, and actually endangering the life of the baby while transporting. Transporting is not something that you want to do with a baby. That's why moms are transported to hospitals who can give tertiary carers for the babies. So now we move the NICU in 1.5 hours because we have everything already organized. We know who goes where, who is responsible, every job is very clearly defined. So as Moti said, we accumulate experience, we sit after the piece and plan and learn from each. But the solution should be, and as I said, people who can walk, they can run to a shelter. NICU staff and people who are bedridden, handicapped, cannot run, they are old, those departments, and OR, of course, operation rooms and catheterization rooms in the hospital have to be built in a way, and we know how to build them, and fast, not 10 years. We already 10 years are under this situation. We have to make them missile-proof so we don't have to relocate patients. And this is something that we do have the plans in place. I think there is a very clear calculation of the budget. The government already committed itself to participate and, of course, fund at least part of these very expensive buildings. And we have to build that maquette that I just showed you. And Then we work there all the time. We will have safe place and least for the staff and for the babies and for the families. When I have to answer the question, a parent, why do we still run? It was so many times that we did it, we should have a permanent solution and we know what to have. And I don't have good answer anymore, except for the many needs of Israel, and the budget has priorities, which we all understand. But I am the person who, for me, the most important thing is the babies. So we hope that with we enlarge our family of support, and as we try to make you all understand the complexity of the issues and challenges, that we continue developing what we know we need to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Golan, and to all of you. Thank you for this glimpse into the incredibly heroic work that Soroka Medical Center performs daily. And we look forward to hearing more at a later date from other departments as well. Right now, I want to thank you all again for attending. And I want to introduce my Double Mitzvah Committee Chair, Sharon Sasson.
Thank you, Orly, and thanks to all who asked such insightful questions. And a special thank you to our incredible guest speakers today, Dr. Agneta Golan, Dr. Moti Klein, and Dr. Shoshana Arbel, who take exceptional measures every day to protect the people of Israel and save lives in the most dire of circumstances. Thanks to Rochelle Eisler, on behalf of Israel Bonds, as Rockland Upstate New York General Chair and National Council Double Chair, Mitzvah Chair, I, Sharon Sasson, am deeply appreciative of your support and the support of American Friends of Soroka Medical Center as we unite in efforts to perpetuate the vision of David Ben-Gurion and contribute to the Jewish homeland. Thanks to our Bonds leadership, Kathy and Stuart, your incessant work to develop and enhance Bonds programming and encourage support is greatly admired. And most of all, thanks to all Israel Bond investors and all who are on this call, who are making a profound impact on the future of our one Jewish state. Your ongoing investments enable Israel to stay recognized as a leader in innovation, in humanitarian efforts, and all sectors of industry and global evolution. On behalf of Israel Bonds, I encourage you to continue supporting our Jewish homeland through investments in bonds, and there are many ways to do so. Online at israelbonds.com, or on the Israel Bonds app, or through your local Israel representative. You can also purchase bonds and donate them to the American Friends of Soroka Medical Center. If you have any investment questions, please contact your local registered representative. On behalf of the Women's Division of Israel Bonds, I thank you for joining us today and for participating in this meaningful double mitzvah. Stay well, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, and lahidrot. This event is officially closed.